Tu Nha slowly woke up. It was supposed to be a peaceful morning, but her chest felt heavy. Her gaze fell on the small yard in front of her house. There, the bare earth was exposed, a silent reminder of the vegetable garden she had painstakingly cultivated. Just a few days ago, it had been full of green life. Then, someone raked and trampled until nothing was left. She didn't cry when she first saw it. Instead, she stood silently, feeling the weight of loss sink deep into her heart. Now sitting on the porch, she sighed. Her child would be born soon. There was no time to think about what had been lost. She knew she had to start over, no matter how much effort it took. Thinking wasn't just about food, it was about hope and the promise of a future she could build with her own hands. She stood up, smoothing the wrinkles out of her old coat. The wicker basket leaned against the wall, ready to be carried. She stepped down onto the porch, her boots sinking into the damp ground, and began walking up the narrow dirt path that wound around the hillside. The drive into town was quiet. Her steps were steady, deliberate, but meaningful. In her mind, she made a list of what she needed: netting to protect the garden, seeds to replant, maybe a little more if she could afford it. The first stop was the hardware store, a low-slung building with wide doors that opened onto the street. Inside, metal pipes, coils of wire, and farm tools were neatly stacked against the walls. A man in a red coat sat near the entrance, looking down at his phone. As she entered, he looked up, put the phone aside, and asked what she needed. "I'm looking for a sturdy net," she whispered. The man nodded and disappeared into the background. A moment later, he returned, carrying a bundle of thick green netting. He set it down on the counter, the coarse fibers brushing against her fingertips as she examined it. It was exactly what she had imagined. "How much is it?" she asked, and she opened her small cloth purse. The money inside was counted twice before she placed it in his hand. The net was heavy, but she folded it neatly and put it in the basket. She could already picture it spread out over her garden, guarding the new shoots that would grow back. She walked the short distance to the grocery store. The smell of fresh vegetables and spices greeted her as she entered. The owner, a cheerful woman in a thick pink coat, recognized her immediately and came over. "How can I help you today?" she asked. "Vegetable seeds," Tu Nha replied. The woman squatted down near a bin and began pulling out small paper packets. "Cabbage, spinach, beans, all good this time of year," she said, placing them in Tu Nha's hands, leaving trails of dust in the cool air. She turned back toward the road home, her eyes on the mountains in the distance. They stood, silent and still, their presence steady, as if they had been watching her the whole way. She quickened her pace slightly. There was work to be done, and she wasn't going to waste a moment. A very long night for Kiet. He lay awake, staring at the faint light coming through the cracks in the wooden wall. Every time he closed his eyes, the image of Tu Nha's worried face appeared in his mind. He wondered if she had rested yet. Had the fear left her heart, or was she still thinking about the robber? Before the sun had fully risen, he sat up. His head was heavy from lack of sleep, but the thought of her pushed him out of bed. He put on his coat, the fabric cool against his skin, and stepped outside to breathe in the morning air. The road to her house was quiet, the only sound being his footsteps on the dry ground. When he arrived, Tu Nha was already outside. The basket she had brought from town lay on the ground. Inside was a bundle of green nets. Broken pieces of bamboo were scattered throughout the garden. She turned to him and spoke, her voice calm but heavy with the weight of what had happened. "Someone came and ruined everything," she said, her eyes fixed on the damage. Kiet listened quietly, his hands clasping a bamboo pole. He could see how much work she had put into building this place and how quickly it had been destroyed. Sitting side by side on the low stone steps, they talked quietly about what needed to be done. Although the garden looked barren now, neither of them had any doubt it would be rebuilt, stronger than before. Kiet and Tu Nha stood up and began to rebuild the ruined garden. The bamboo fence was broken in many places. Dry palm leaves and wood chips were scattered on the ground. They stood in silence for a moment, looking at the chaotic scene before them. Without another word, Kiet bent down to pick up the large bamboo pieces. He quickly used his hands to pull the broken poles out of the ground. Tu Nha walked beside him, picking up the piles of fallen palm leaves and stacking them neatly. The green net she had bought the day before lay in a basket nearby, waiting to be used. They worked steadily, the sound of bamboo scraping the ground mixed with the soft rustling of leaves. Kiet carried the heavier objects, dragging them to the side of the house. Tu Nha followed behind, picking up the smaller bamboo branches and digging the soil around the vegetable beds. Every now and then, they glanced at each other, without saying anything. They both knew this was the first step to bringing life to the garden. The ruined fence has been cleared away, making way for rebuilding. Kiet stood there, glancing at the tall bamboo grove on the hillside. "We need new stakes," he said simply. Tu Nha nodded. They walked together on the uneven underfoot. The bamboo forest stretched out ahead, the lush green bamboo stalks swaying gently in the wind. Kiet chose a straight, sturdy bamboo stalk and tested its hardness by pushing it with his hand. Satisfied, he pulled out the small knife he had brought with him. Each slash was even and decisive, the sound of the blade cutting into the bamboo stalk echoing throughout the bamboo forest. When a bamboo stalk broke, he carefully set it down, then moved on to the next one. Soon, a pile of small stakes was ready. Kiet shouldered the heavy bundle of bamboo and turned back. Back in the garden, they put the bamboo down. Kiet used an old saw to cut them into equal lengths, then inserted them into the holes they had dug earlier. They used green netting to surround the fence. Finally, the protective frame for the vegetable garden was completed. They stood there looking at each other and smiling. The garden was neat and clean now, the new fence catching the midday sun. Kiet wiped the sweat from his brow and knew they couldn't delay any other chores. Tu Nha took her basket, ready to go to the fields, where she had work waiting for her. Together, they walked along the winding dirt path that led downhill. When they reached a fork in the road, Kiet slowed down. Up ahead, the left path led to the fields where Tu Nha would be harvesting. The other path, narrower and half hidden by tall grass, led to the edge of the village, the place he had been thinking about since yesterday. He stopped, turned to her. "We're almost there," he said, nodding toward the path on the left. "You go ahead and start harvesting. I have work to do." Tu Nha watched him for a moment, feeling the weight of his words, but she didn't push. "Be careful," she replied curtly before continuing on. Kiet watched her go, the sound of her footsteps fading, then turned back toward the narrow path. The memory of yesterday's robbery was still fresh in his mind, the shock, the anger, the sense of helplessness. He knew that as long as the robber was free, neither he nor Zia could truly feel safe. Today he was determined. He would find him. The road was quiet, shaded by bamboo and tall trees. The faint chirping of birds drifted down from above, occasionally broken by the rustling of leaves underfoot. Kiet moved carefully, scanning the path for any signs of trouble. Soon, he reached the site of the robbery, a bend in the road near a bamboo grove. He stopped, eyes narrowing. There, just ahead in the shade of the bamboo grove, a figure was crouching, partially hidden by the dense green bamboo stalks. The man was dressed much as he had yesterday, his head bent forward as if waiting. Kiet's heart pounded. He retreated into the shade, watching from a distance. The minutes ticked by. The man's movements were slow and deliberate, adjusting his posture, occasionally glancing up the road, always looking for cover. Kiet's jaw clenched. It was him. Same posture, same way he watched the road. For a moment, Kiet considered confronting him right there. But he knew it would be risky. The man might run away, and then they would have no evidence. He turned back quietly, following the trail until the bamboo thinned and the road opened up again. From there, he headed straight for the small police station in the center of the village. The policeman on duty looked up as Kiet entered. "I think I found the man who robbed me yesterday," Kiet said, his voice low but firm. He described the location in detail, describing the man's clothing, build, and behavior. Within minutes, they were ready to go, and Kiet led the way back into the bamboo forest, each step bringing them closer to settling their unfinished business. When they reached the bamboo grove, the man was still there, hunched over and alert. The officers did not rush forward. They remained hidden, watching his every move. Minutes passed. The man shifted, looked back, and then walked along the trail. The officers glanced at each other. With quiet steps, they followed closely behind, trying to hide behind the bamboo grove. Kiet stood back a little, careful not to make a sound. Every turn in the path, every time the man stopped, they followed closely, never letting him out of their sight. The hunt had begun, not with a chase, but with patience. They would wait for the right moment, when his crimes could no longer hide in the shadows. The narrow dirt road shimmered in the evening sunlight. From around the bend ahead, a familiar figure emerged. Ziya, walking home after work, a bag on her hip. Her steps were slow, tired from the long day, and she did not see the three figures watching from the shadows. The robber's eyes lit up. He watched her, then, seeing no one around, he rushed towards her, his hand reaching out to snatch the bag. "Stop!" a policeman shouted. They quickly moved to restrain the thief, but the man waved his arms wildly. Ziya froze, startled by the chaos, her bag falling to the ground. Kiet's heart pounded. In just 2 quick steps, he was beside her, pushing her out of reach. The robber struggled, kicking and twisting. But fortunately, the 2 policemen subdued him.
"Put the handcuffs on!"
A cop yelled. Within seconds, the robber was on his knees, his wrists bound tightly behind his back. He cursed. But his voice was drowned out by the panting, both his and the cops. Kiet turned to Ziya.
"Are you okay?"
he asked, his voice low, his eyes quickly scanning her for injuries.
"I'm fine, just shocked,"
she said, still panting. Kiet let out a breath, a long, steady sigh that carried with it all the tension of the past 2 days. The cops pulled the robber to his feet and began to lead him toward the station. Dust swirled around the steps, dissipating into the golden light. Kiet picked up the basket, brushed it off.
Let's go home,"
he said. They walked side by side, the road ahead quiet again, and this time safe.
Chúng ta vừa cùng nhau đi qua một hành trình nhỏ nhưng lại chất chứa thật nhiều cảm xúc, từ những nỗi buồn, những giọt nước mắt cho đến cả những khoảnh khắc bình yên, giản dị vô cùng quý giá. Cảm ơn bạn đã đồng hành và lắng nghe đến tận những giây phút cuối cùng. Mỗi một lượt xem, mỗi một ánh mắt dừng lại, mỗi một trái tim cùng đồng cảm đều là nguồn động lực để cho những câu chuyện như thế này được tiếp tục viết nên. Nếu cuộc sống còn bộn bề, đôi khi chỉ cần những giây phút lắng lại ta sẽ nhận ra rằng niềm tin, lòng nhân ái và sự sẻ chia luôn có sức mạnh chữa lành kỳ diệu. Và cũng chính nhờ có bạn, người không ngại dành thời gian quý giá để đồng hành, mà hành trình của nhân vật trong câu chuyện này trở nên trọn vẹn hơn, ấm áp hơn. Dù phía trước vẫn còn nhiều chông gai, nhưng chỉ cần trái tim con người biết hướng về nhau thì bóng tối nào cũng sẽ được soi sáng bởi một tia hy vọng. Xin gửi đến bạn lời cảm ơn chân thành nhất. Hẹn gặp lại các bạn trong các tập tiếp theo, nơi câu chuyện còn tiếp tục mở ra và những bước chân kiên cường, luôn mơ ước lặng lẽ và niềm tin chưa bao giờ tắt. Cảm ơn các bạn rất nhiều. Chúc các bạn luôn bình an.